where we are in life, right? So we are online, we are virtual, we are technically inclined citizens, if you will. So having an online presence should not come as a surprise to many of us. If it comes as a surprise to you, if you're thinking, you know, well, I'm going to be in a trades industry, I don't need an online presence, you'll soon come to realize that you actually do. How many of you have an online presence? You have some type of online account, whether it's X, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Okay, I see just one person. Can't be. Many of us probably have some type of online presence. How many of you have ever gotten a job? Okay, just wanna, how many of you have ever gotten a job using a platform like Indeed.com, LinkedIn, anybody, any platform like that? Okay. What about, have you ever done any networking? How many people have ever like maybe reached out to someone that you didn't know about something? It could have been something social, something business wise. Anybody has ever been brave enough? Maybe you've just made a comment on something on Twitter, formerly known as X. Anybody ever did that? I have to say, I normally don't do stuff like that, but I was so incensed at something. I think I posted something on a Yahoo news feed, and I instantly regretted it because I don't like talking to strangers. And so my email kept getting pinged because people were responding to my comment, you know, some good, some, you know, bad, some whatever. And I'm like, I should have never done it. Not because, you know, I care. It's just like, I don't want to have keep having the conversation. It's very different when you use those types of platforms because, you know, someone can see a comment you made like 2 weeks ago and they're like saying something to you. I'm like, dude, I'm totally over that conversation. Stop reaching out to me. So I think I've done that twice in my life and I've regretted it each time. But anyway, just because I don't like to belabor things. But chapter 4 is going to talk about the importance of this online presence. So let's get into it. Here's the thing. A job seeker should evaluate his or her online presence, right? What is an online presence? Like I said, it can come from any of those different platforms, whether it's a social, like, well, all of them could be social, really, right? But any of those platforms could also be professional. We always encourage you guys to have separate professional accounts. There is nothing wrong with you having a personal Instagram and then a professional Instagram. I would actually, let me get Nelson in here or something. Okay. I would actually prefer it, if I were you, to have a personal and a professional one. Now, as we get into what's called a digital footprint, and chapter 4 talks about that, you want to be careful what you put on your personal, because there are HR departments, there are CEOs, there are people that do Google searches on their candidates. Yes, it's a thing. The same way I encourage you before you go to an interview to get the name of the person, the full name of the person that you're going to interview with, because you're going to go Google them to see what they're about. They're going to do the same thing for you. Not having an online presence is like not having credit. They say not having credit is as bad as having bad credit, because nobody wants to work with you if they can't see some type of record on you. Well, now it's the same when it comes to getting a job. Like not like they want you to have an online presence, but they do want to be able to check you out. Let's just be honest. They want to be able to check you out. Now, preferably it's through a professional page and not something personal. When chapter 4 talks about a digital footprint, what they're talking about is anything that you have ever done online. If a prudent company wanted to find out what you've posted, they can. So you have to ask yourself the question, do I have things that are online that I would not want a potential employer to see? And if you do, what I would suggest is you start to minimize what you're doing or clean some of that stuff up. I'm not telling you that you cannot have free speech. Please do not think that. But what I am telling you is that, remember, free speech is a constitutional right. It is not an employer right. So companies can say, well, I don't want my employees to have have this negative, or platform where somebody, i.e. their customers or their stakeholders, can become offended. That's why they don't want you to do it. It has nothing to do with free speech. It's just they don't want you messing up their money. Constitutionally, you can sit, you have freedom of speech, but just know that companies have an equal right to hire and fire those they feel that are in conflict with the company's principles. So sometimes they will do a search on you to see, okay, is this someone that could affect my my platform, our company's reputation. Now, is that going to apply to most of you guys starting out? Probably not, but you never know. So I'm just saying, like, don't even put yourself in that situation. So what I would say now, just think about, okay, if that's something that I like to do, maybe it's something you like to do in your leisure, you're just going to want to consider that, right? So just be mindful of that. Now, I would even start encouraging you to, set up a professional email account. Like, even when someone emails me on my personal emails, I try to put a signature block, even if it's nothing more than my name and a title, depending upon if it's education, I might put my education. If it's consulting, I might put my title as a consultant, just to start getting into the habit of doing that. Clearly, once you get a job, you're going to have a professional email account. But I say you can even start that now with your personal emails, even if you put, some people even put their degrees, you guys see that all the time, right? Underneath their names. It's always good to start to get in the habit of being professional, because at the end of the day, how do you want someone to look at you? You want them to look at you in a professional light. Go ahead and start being professional. Again, I shy away from putting like my cell phone number unless you have a Google number or something like that, because I think that's a little bit too invasive. And, also, obviously don't put your personal, home address. I would not do that. Now, one of the biggest things that you are going to do on your social media is network. Being online is not just about getting a job. It's not just about promoting yourself. It's also about networking. When you are in your career, you are in a small pool, right? There aren't but so many people in the HVAC industry, right? And I was thinking about you guys. Any HVAC people, give me a quick thumbs up. I was going to drop my kid off at school, and I was behind this HVAC, and I was like trying to get their phone number to give it to my HVAC students. You never know, they could be hiring. But I thought about that. I thought about those that wanted to start their own business, so you never clock out when you are a teacher. But, you want, I lost my train of thought. That's what happens. What was I just talking about? Anyway, but you want to network at all times, right? Because you never know where your next opportunity is going to come from. So, your social platform is not just, again, for you to find a job. It's not just for you to look up stuff. The big part of it is for you to network. Your pool is small, like I was saying, but so many HVAC people, here in Central Florida, here in the Southeast region. The same thing with electrical, the same thing with welding, right? The same thing with VA. So believe it or not, especially if you plan on staying in this regional area, you know, the South, North Carolinas, Georgia, Florida type of thing, you're going to come to know throughout your career who are the main companies. You're going to know who the big companies are, who the small companies are, what companies have these contracts, what companies do those contracts. Give me a thumbs up if you feel like you've been doing some research on your industry now, like you know a little bit about your industry. Maybe you have family members in your industry, or maybe, I don't know. Anybody been doing any research on their industry? What? You guys don't know anything about your industry. Start doing research on your industry. You need to know who the key players are, my friends. It's very, very important. Like, you got to take the game serious. It's like, now I'm an educator. I can tell you all the major universities, all the major colleges, you know, especially those that do what I do, you know, I know people that work, you know, your part of your networking is going to be people that work in those industries. You know, it's going to become very, very important to you as you start to move up the ladder. Remember, you're not going to be starting out, you know, your whole career. I know some of us can't think past that first or second job, but you need to be thinking long term, which is the reason why those career plans are critically important, because we want you guys to think long term. We're asking you to set up a LinkedIn account. Give me a thumbs up if you have a LinkedIn account, because that account is your social platform. It's your portfolio. Jet has one. Jet's the only one with Jet's like, I'm ready to go. And that is going to be your portfolio. Back in the day, we used to have to walk around with an actual portfolio. Anybody ever remember a portfolio? It's like something you could buy like at Office Depot, right? And we would open it up and we would have our resumes in there. We would have our evaluations in there. We would have, positive reviews in there. Like, you would have to physically walk around with this portfolio and hand it to people when you did interviews. Now you don't have to do that. Now you have what's called LinkedIn. It's an online portfolio of everything that you've done, your certifications, your education, where you've worked. You can promote different things about yourself. You can have your own page where you can, post your interests. Like, you guys got it good. I mean, we got it good, but y'all have it even better, because you don't have to suffer through what we used to go through. And the LinkedIn account is where you're going to start to make some of those connections. You can connect with CEOs. You can connect with people that own their own business, just on a social level. And then imagine when it's time for you to go to that next job, and definitely connect with each other. Now, if you don't do anything else in this assignment that we're going to ask you to do, connect with one another. And connect with me. I have over probably at least a couple hundred students that have gone through this course that have connected with me. The times that I've seen a student say, hey, I got promoted. Hey, I'm starting my own business. Hey, I'm going to this new company. And if you're connected to me, you can see all of that. You can reach out to me and say, hey, Professor Taylor, Miss Taylor, I was in your class last year. I see you're connected to Tom. Tom is working at a company I'm trying to send my resume to. Can you make a connect? How do you think it happens? That's how we do it, people. That's how you start networking. Networking is not just, with someone that you know. It's also with people that you don't know. And that is have to be people in your industry. Now, the book talks about X. I'm going to tell you something right now. I am not a big fan of X. I put it out there. I was a big fan of Twitter. I am not a fan of X. Anybody remembers Twitter? Of course you do. But do you remember Twitter when it used to be a premier news site? Twitter used to be the place to go. All companies were on Twitter. There's so much information you can get from Twitter. It was almost a second news source. Now, I wouldn't get caught dead believing anything I see on Twitter. Twitter is somewhere you go if you just want to vent, if you just some propaganda machine. And I'm not saying it because of Elon. I'm saying it because it has gone down to that. Like, no, professional company that wants to be taken seriously, post on there, not because there's something wrong with them. It's because the audience doesn't, the audience that used to believe the news cycle, now they have a mistrust with the site. And that is because of Elon, which is horrible. Can you imagine? So think about all those people, all those companies that were on Twitter that are maybe stayed around on X, and they're trying to put out valuable information about their company. And now everybody's giving them the side eye, or a large portion of the population is giving them a side eye. So I don't promote Twitter as a place for you to, put your professional platform, maybe if it gets back to being what it used to be, which it used to be a very, informative place. And it was, not political or biased like that. It was a great place to go, but use your own discretion on that, but it's in the book, so you can see it. You can get an account. We are encouraging you guys to go on to social platforms and to start engaging. You may find some of your industries on X. I don't know, because so many people left. But if you can find a really good, professional networking site for your industry, hey, go for it, right? Because you can filter. Hopefully, I think you can still filter and get information. It used to be a great place to go to find out what is happening. Like, think of it this way. The quickest way to connect to a company you're trying to get into is to go find them on a social platform. Most of the companies that you want to work at, or let's say you don't know where you want to work at yet, and you go to Indeed or wherever, you can look them up on social platform, whether it's X, Instagram, LinkedIn. They all have accounts and they all do postings. They don't just post onto their websites. You can even go onto these places and Google, like if if you just want to Google welding, or Google, HVAC, or Google VA, and see what comes up, and maybe Google it and put like welding Central Florida, welding, Fort Myers, wherever you are, and see what comes up, see what businesses are there. It's a great way to do some research on companies and to try to get connected, and obviously to try to find a job, right? Now, if you have an Instagram account, anybody have Instagram? Again, I'm going to suggest that maybe you start a professional one. So you may say, well, what do you mean by a professional one? Quite simply, or even if you want to convert the one you have now, it's just that, I don't know, some people have family members that are long distance. They connect with their friends, so they may use their current Instagram account personally. But what I mean by professional, there's nothing wrong with you starting another Instagram account and just post things that have to do with your industry. So if I'm in a VA, I may have an account where it's everything VA, everything about the veterinary field. Maybe I may want to focus on what's happening, here locally. And I'm not saying you're going to be a news reporter, you're going to be a poster. I'm just saying, if you're going to have a presence, you want, if someone were to Google you, for that stuff to pop up. You see my point? So if you're trying to get a job at a pet hospital and you have an Instagram account, and maybe you have a love for reptiles, whatever, we're in Florida, right? So someone goes to your Instagram account and they see all this cool stuff about reptiles. They see, and make it to where it's your natural interest. I'm not telling you go out there and start faking it. I'm just saying things that you are naturally interested in. So if you're interested in a reptile, and you post stuff about that. So if I'm a company and, I have a company and we work with, like the preservation of, reptiles in Florida, and you want a job there, I'm going to go and Google you. And if that pops up, what is it going to tell me? They're going to be like, oh, this person is really, really serious about what they do. Does that make sense, guys? Right, it happens. I'm not saying every company is going to Google you, but I'm saying 50% of them are going to Google you, probably 60%. I'm just telling you. And if you don't have a presence, again, it's not a no, but it's like okay, if I can find 3 of the candidates on Instagram or somewhere and I can't find you anywhere, then, how does that really look? Like, put yourself in the interviewer's shoes. Would you rather have someone that you can find information on, and the information that you find on that person mirrors what they say on their resume? Or do you want someone that has given you a piece of paper that says there are all these great things and you can't verify anything? So which one would you want to hire? So think about that. Now, let me ask you a question. How many people have kids? Anybody have kids? Quick thumbs up if you have a kid. Nobody? Okay, well, I'll ask the hypothetical anyway. So let me ask you, another reason why you want to clean up your platforms is you don't want them to find negative stuff about you. So if you had a kid, let's just say this real thing happened in Florida, maybe you heard about it. Let's say you had a kid in the 4th grade and they had a social studies teacher. I'm just going to just, for the sake of argument, just give it a gender. Let's say it's Miss Johnson. And your kid comes to you and say they found Miss Johnson's favorite page on Instagram. Hopefully y'all know what I'm talking about. Give me a thumbs up if that would be an issue for you. Thumbs up if your kid comes to you and go, oh, I found Miss Johnson, but Miss Johnson's page was a friendly page. You know what I'm talking about. Who would have an issue with that if your kid found that? Oh, you guys are very progressive. So who would not have an issue if your kid found that? Quick thumbs up if you're like, hey, everybody got to work, everybody got to eat. Miss Johnson's having an extra page wouldn't bother you. Do y'all even know what I'm talking about? Or are you guys just asleep? Give me a thumbs up if you know what type of page I'm referring to, so I know that you're awake. Oh, y'all just. All right. Go ahead, Taswana. Oh, you were just saying yes. Okay, so y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. Well, it was a big legal case because this teacher had a personal page and it was discovered. You know, I guess she needed the money. And some people had issues with that. I think she even lost her job behind it. Do you think that's fair or not fair? Thumbs up if you think it's fair. She should have lost her job. Thumbs up if you think it's not fair. Yeah, okay, you don't think it's fair? Okay. So, but at the end of the day, unfortunately, see, and this is where it got a little tricky because I don't want to get too legal, but a public school basically is a government entity, and a government entity technically cannot discriminate against your personal rights. Now, if it was a private school, then they could say no. But if it's a public school, you know, she did have a case, but, you know, their argument was, you know, a public school is a state actor, if you will, so they get to enforce certain rules that if something is illegal. So I think, you know, I don't remember how the case went down, but that was an issue. So why is that an extreme thing? Well, you know, companies may feel the same way about you if they find something that they may find, you know, not in alignment with their value system. You know, why do I say that? Again, obviously, I don't want you to think negatively about it, but we want you to post, but we just want you to be mindful of what you post. All right. Any questions on that? No, probably not. All right. So obviously, again, we want you to be positive. We want you to have positive thoughts. We want you to use social media, but we just want you to use it in a positive way. All right. I promised you I was going to get you out of here because you do have to set up a LinkedIn account. But here's what we want you to do. And thinking about how you're going to start this networking, I want you to think of 3 places or people, it doesn't have to be both, that you may use to grow your network. So maybe it could be 3 people in this classroom. Maybe it could be your 3 instructors. Maybe it could be a combination of both. Maybe it could be, you know, your next door neighbor because he's the one that told you about the electrical system. So give me 3 people or places. The places could be maybe it's a company or a specific company or a specific, you know, genre like government or whatever, that you think that you can use to begin to grow your network. And if you're using any of them now, let me know. Does everybody understand that question?
So pretty much 3 people or places where you can use to network for your field?
Yes, sir.
Got it.
Because we want you guys to start thinking about this idea of networking. And I'm telling you, I get overwhelmed just thinking about it because I think about the number of years I've had to network. It's an ongoing thing and it never stops. And it only evolves and gets better. But the really cool thing about it, you know, when you get my age and you have a 30-year career, that's 30 years of people that I've come across, and I have a wonderful, wonderful professional network, 30 years in the making. So it continues to grow and expand. And that's really good when you can call on people and lean on people. I have people I've worked with in different countries, different states, just in education, you know, so I can always call up and say, hey, I see you just got that promotion over at so-and-so place, or you just became a dean or whatever, you started your own school, you know, and we all still stay connected. So networking is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And we want you guys to start to build your network. This is why we want you to do that. All right, so 3 places or people you think you can begin your network. And I do think that you're doing your LinkedIn today, so make sure you pay attention to that. Now, for those of you that are like, oh my God, I don't want to do a LinkedIn page, please note, even if you set one up temporarily and then you want to delete it afterwards, that's fine. But we have to make sure that you know how to set up your LinkedIn profile. It's a little bit different from like other platforms, but it's similar. So if you have a Instagram or Facebook or an account like that, it's similar. But this one, you're focusing more on your career, and you get to post your resume on there, and you know, your summary, and you know, your headshot and things of that nature. All right. All right, my friends, and we don't have any other questions on this. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording just in case other people have